Okay, now let me introduce Dave Borthwick. Dave Borthwick is a tramper of fields and stander in the rain who lives in Dumfries and Galloway in southwest Scotland. He teaches environmental humanities at the University of Glasgow's School of Interdisciplinary Studies. So Dave, thank you very much for offering to be our MC. Over to you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for asking me to be MC. It's a really great privilege, and I so enjoyed the chapbook. But more of that later. I'm going to begin with a poem which I published in Zoomorphic magazine, which is kind of draws attention to wildlife in the UK, and it's called "Around the Circumference of Exactly Here in 7,000 Miles and 5 Species." 1 and 2. Always now. The jackdaws talk from dark to dark, voices chimpish in the low conversations of pre-dawn. Intimate and confiding before the yelling at the sun, and in the sun, time of the whirling wings and bickering, they will repeat to yell at the sun going and in the going sun. Their daily migrations around trees and cattle sheds, the burn and the river that cuts across Crown Land and Cooper's Land, the Temple Woods, and the quarry flitted by peregrines. 3 and 4, September to April. There are hooper swans in the fields along the village road, and they bugle Iceland's summer sound as the light comes and as it goes, and startle drivers with low glidings to land on Mackenzie's land, over which the pink-footed geese travel long winter habit, out from the coast first thing and inland, 1,000 on Doyle's land, then Dreyf's land and Tulloch's land as the months wear on, whiffling to land, buzzing to rise, in towards the sea again come night, later each night, the earth tilting the seasons slowly back to light, to the sound of Greenland's summer. 5, April to August. We make there early to avoid tourists just after their return, and find one perched on the tree struck by lightning years ago, and it weeps reedy and high, sound of a Senegalese river with the sun recasting the water. And the osprey bears off downriver then, away from the land held in trust for the nation, because of a warlord's ruin, sometime before the extinction, before the return with a flounder from the coast. Okay, so I'm going to move on and hear much better poems from you guys now. Our first reader tonight, I don't know if he's here yet, is Arthur Sparrow. Is Arthur here? I didn't see him. Sorry, Jeff.
Right, rock and roll. My poem, a little bit sentimental, looking back to a garden in South London that was, as I think I mentioned in my spiel, a bit of a lost world. You could imagine it was a piece of the sort of archaic countryside which sort of managed to escape the usual sort of suburban improvements. And my parents moved there and the house was pretty ramshackle. The garden was about 1/3 of an acre, and in one corner it had a huge oak tree, which was very ancient. And being a sort of surly 16-year-old, I used to go up there and contemplate the world and look out across London before the gherkin went up and smoke fags and drink cider or something. And it meant a lot to me because my parents had moved to London up from the Kent coast, where me and my mates and my brothers were sort of feral kids tearing around doing all sorts of things in the countryside. And I suppose I carried to London some of that sort of countryside with me, and to actually have a garden like this was fantastic from that perspective. So, I look back and it was sort of a golden place. Death of a veteran, South London, 1973. Followed by countrymen, spared by Victorians and Edwardians as London sprawled, a soot-black, lichenless snaghorn giant rooted in sticky toffee clay. Rising above advancing waves of terraces and buses, the 12, 176 and 185. A sapling in a hedgerow, shielded from grazing cattle, lammas-leaved and oak-appled on a terraced hillside field, there silent but set aglow by the distant great fire. Tall enough now for roosting rooks, and in the fading light, a part of Palmer's delicious dream, indivisible with Blake's infant visions of angels in trees on Peckham Rye. Chimney smoke pea soupers in time acidified the bark. Luftwaffe photographed witness of the Blitz, by now a relic of sloughed rural skin. A teenage boy, smoking and brooding in his nest unseen, where the trunk branched and spread, loftier than St. Paul's below. Black cap, chiff-chaff perched above, and once a pied flycatcher en route to Welsh woods. They said plant a tree in 73, but they took one down for a bungalow called Zena, in time shaded and coloured by a flowering cherry tree.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a terrific poem. I like it in many ways. I like the creatureliness of the tree, Arthur. I really love this soot black lichenless staghorn giant. It's absolutely wonderful in characterizing the tree physically as well as what it's seen, and then it being death of a veteran. It recalls, of course, veteran trees, very old trees, but also a veteran who has seen things that commonly people don't see, and sometimes not good things either. So it's kind of encoded in that as well. And I love that the tree has had visions. So you mentioned Palmer and you mentioned Blake, but the tree too has had visions. And I think all these things coming together are just absolutely wonderful. So thank you so very much. Thank you. We're going to move on now to our second piece, which is by Cheryl Markowski. Cheryl's words are in Ellipsis Zine, New Flash Fiction Review, MS Lexia, Retreat West, and Janus Literary. And Cheryl's Walk, Listen, Creates 22-3 Flash Fiction Writer in Residence as well. Are you there, Cheryl?
Yes, hi.
Hello,
Thank
Cheryl.
you very much. Thank you, David. I wrote this story actually on a Caribbean island. We spend half the year working there, and there's a lot of wild monkeys. So this obviously struck me in some way. And I was also interested in exploring loss and reactions of a mother through the point of view of a child. Right, the story is called Sucking. Our mum sitting in the park, breastfeeding the baby, tuft of dark hair, alien eyes. Won't they want him back? Emily whispers. I mouth, be quiet, to my little sister. We sit like any family on an outing. Mum fondling the monkey's oversized ears, whopping enormous like mine, that get whacked regularly when she's cross with me. As the monkey gulps and swallows, breathes out puffs of air, makes caw sounds, Mum stares down at the flat face and muzzle. Can we keep it as a pet? Emily asks. Will the zoo mind? I slap her leg, but it's too late. Mum shoos us from the bench, crouches over the baby monkey, growls softly while she strokes its shadowy fur. I start to cry, claw tears away so Emily won't see. I walk Emily to the playground, to the swing with rusting chains. I push her higher and higher, from tree to tree, above hugging woods. So she won't see Mum nuzzling the monkey. Mum used to call me her little monkey. That was before. Emily's mouth makes an O shape and puffs out, wee, as she touches marshmallow clouds with her clerk's tip toes. The monkey clings to Mum's belly. I know when our mum's milk dries, when the sucking pain of losing the baby with the tuft of blonde hair and blue eyes goes away, I'll be her little monkey again. And we'll sit in the park, safe under the trees, like a small troop on a day out.
Thank you so very much, Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love your use of language in this story. You have whopping and whacked and clawing tears away. And there's a great rhythm to everything as well. There's almost a kind of simian energy to the language, which kind of links to both the monkey, but also the kids as well. It's a really great, kind of use of language being mimetic of that kind of simian movement. It's great. And I just love the phrase, she touches marshmallow clouds with her clerk's tipped shoes. It's just terrific. But it's great the way in which you have this kind of the energy in the language, but also the poignancy of it as well. That there's a sense in which the speaker kind of becomes a mother figure to Emily with the displacement, and there's a real poignancy there as well. It's a really moving piece. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, thank you for the feedback. It's really kind. It's lovely to be here tonight.
Thank you so very much. Okay, so we're going to move on now to M. Gray, who is a poet and artist from Brighton, and she recently won second prize in the MS Lexia Women's Poetry Competition. Hello there, Em.
Hi, hello, thank you, Dave, and hello everyone. It's lovely to see your friendly faces. Hello. So the theme of the secrets of trees for this competition kept bringing me back to a holly tree at the mental health centre I used to go to. And the eye markings on its trunk made it seem like it was witnessing the visitors to the centre, who might often be feeling quite vulnerable and unrooted. And this got me thinking about the difference between this quiet witnessing and what might feel more like a scrutiny inside the centre, leading to diagnoses and labels. I revisited the tree to make some writing notes, and it had been a good few years since I'd been there. I realised I had that feeling of fondness and excitement you get when meeting up with an old friend who you settle straight back into a closeness with and don't need to reintroduce yourself to. Evergreen. Long ago discharged, I revisit the tree at the mental health centre. Lover, tender, touch the keloids of its burls. Higher, its leaves are smooth-edged. I once presumed two species, one with its spikes and clinginess, the well-established other. Since, I've learned a holly grows sharp, lower to the ground for self-protection. It can leaf from one body, a spectrum. In this garden, thin platitudes are screwed to a backless bench. Seek and you shall find. Hasty climbers have sudden falls. The tree remains as mute and patient as an elephant's knee. Its branches an easy ladder. Here, small Picassos, are the bark eyes I remember that have borne untellable witness to the ones who pause to lock, unlock their quick getaway bikes, search for fresh tissues, call mum. Amongst sap-bright lichen, a V between two eyes invokes an owl, who I imagine circling, sadly, the crossed boxing up of a single swerved gaze, a patient's mismatched socks. Darling, the owl allowing me to stroke her wings, might say, "Here are berries for the darkest days. What's clipped for the taking grows back." Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's again a really, really poignant poem. I love what you said at the beginning, that yeah, I have at least 4 friend trees, and I just refer to them as such, that they're just familiar, and it's the tactile nature of things that you conjure here as well, and then the elephant's knee, that it's a real relationship one can have with a tree. Absolutely. And I love your use of language here as well. But I think if I'd written the phrase "the keloids of its burls," I would just have taken the morning off. to be honest, it's really terrific. I love the kind of the platitudinous language being in italics, but the incredible poignancy towards the end, which emerges from the tree, also being in italics. One replaces the other in dialogue with the tree. And I think that's just an absolutely fantastic ending to a great poem. Thank you so much, Em. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Gosh, we're it's always like move straight on. This is great. It is. I think Arthur said rock and roll. It's just this one great song after another. They're all bangers. Okay, we're moving on now to Lizzie Gwinnell, who's going to talk about and read her piece, Deirdre. Lizzie lives in Wiltshire with 2 black cats. Her first novel, No Milk Today, was published in 2022. Hello there, Lizzie.
Hello everyone. It's lovely to be here. I work as a prison law solicitor. So I tend to go into a lot of prisons in the southwest of England where I live. And many of them are surrounded by some beautiful countryside, trees, and many of them are also these days full of allotments to encourage the inmates to get in touch with nature. There's one particular prison near me that I visit very regularly, not because of any misdemeanor, but because that's where the bulk of my work is. And it is set in some beautiful countryside. It is an old mansion house and has quite the history in the village where it's situated. And I often wonder about the freedom of the countryside that surrounds this prison compared to the loss of liberty which the people inside the prison obviously experience. That's their punishment. They're removed from society. But looking out of their windows, they would be able to see beautiful trees and beautiful landscapes. And so that was my inspiration for writing my piece. Deirdre. He could see the tree from the window of his prison cell. Betula pendula, the teacher said when he drew it in art class. Silver birch. It's associated with love and new beginnings. He called the tree Deirdre after his grandmother. At night, her white bark glowed in the security lights that shone down on barbed wire and metal gates, softening their daytime retributions. There had only been one tree on the council estate where he grew up, and no one had cared about it. It had been set fire to, urinated on, and ignored. It wasn't important. Drugs and cars and girls were important, not trees. Now trees were important. Now, when the perimeters of his world were reduced to a prison cell, the silver birch had something he no longer had. Freedom to bend with the wind, freedom to feel the warmth of the sun, freedom to stretch roots deep into the earth. He thought about the birds that sheltered inside her leafy canopy and the bats and owls who visited at night. He thought about all the men she had seen come and go, whilst growing quietly in the grey, grim grounds of His Majesty's prison. Every time he looked at the tree, he felt the sap of hope rise inside him. Every night he said good night to her before he went to sleep. And as he slept, she watched over him, whispering her secrets into the dark. Love and new beginnings. Love and new beginnings.
Thank you so very much, Lizzie. Thank you. I really enjoyed your piece. I enjoyed it really very much indeed. I love the way that the physicality of the tree is something that the speaker can feel from within, can imagine what the wind feels like going through the tree, can imagine the physical properties of that while incarcerated. But then I love the inversion as well, that we get to the point where every night he looked at the tree, he felt the sap of hope rise in him, that he's taking on something of the tree and looking at it. Again, this kind of sense of a reciprocity and a relationship with the tree. And I think you evoke that so very well. And just the agency the tree has being greater than his own is something that really comes across as well. And you're really successfully. Thank you so very much. It's a terrific little piece.
Thank you very much for your feedback. That's really helpful.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to Penny Walker now. Penny started writing creatively during lockdown as a way of spending time in a better draft of the world. Oh, it's a nice phrase. She lives in North London. Penny, I think you've asked me to read the piece, but do you want to say a little bit about it first?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. I've asked for it to be read because I think it needs a male voice. But I'm really, well, there's so much about trees in the urban environment that kind of fascinate me, but I'm really interested in the kind of accidental rewilding that takes place in unconsidered places, kind of behind walls or in the little bits of land that that no one's kind of paying attention to. And I'm interested in the kind of patient growth of trees and how they respond to obstacles around them, and that's part of what's in the story. But I also was really thinking a lot about what are the kinds of secrets that trees might hold, that might be entrusted to trees, and what happens when the secrets are revealed. So, and I love the very short form of flash fiction, and so the challenge was to try and make a kind of a complete story in miniature. So that's what I was hoping to achieve.
Thanks ever so much, Penny. I hope I do this justice. I'll do my very best, I promise. So it's called Forever. The estate agent insisted the blockwork garage had to go. Shruti came round to help. I need to bash something with a sledgehammer, Dad, she said. You'll be doing me a favour. Dada built that garage, I know, before he even had a car. I'd steal samosas from the kitchen and squeeze into the space behind the garage to eat them. The silvery trunk of the sycamore grew too close for my chunky brothers to get through. My sisters were afraid of spiders. It was my place, mine and yours. Shruti swung the sledgehammer again and again. Dust and chips of concrete exploded everywhere. The tree is massive now, and its bark isn't smooth and strokeable anymore. It's pitted and crusty, and presses up against the garage, bulging over the top like Dada's belly over his belt, like mine now. Shruti struck again. The wall fell. Part of the trunk that had been against the blocks was revealed, naked, flat. Where it had kissed the cold concrete, there was a carved heart, clumsy but beautiful. A for K, forever. I put my hand over it, surprised, reminded of another belly, naked and flat. Did you bring your girlfriends behind the garage, Dad? You old dog, Shruti laughed. It says forever. You should call. You need someone to cook for you. But take her somewhere nicer than this, okay? So here I am, messaging you. Hello, Andrew. My name is Kamal. I think we were at school together. A round of applause for Penny for a really terrific short piece of flash fiction. It is like a miniature, Penny. The economy of it and the pace of it are both just absolutely just A1. It's a really terrific little piece. And I love what you were saying at the beginning about the trees and unloved places and the secrets they can have. But it's also they're also constrained by the urban environment as well, or constrained by the place in which they're trying to grow. And I think that's beautifully mirrored in Kamal's story, that there's a sense of the dada who's built the garage before there's even a car. But that is somehow a full and a realized ambitious life, whereas Kamal's is somehow, there's a life lived, but the tree is testament to a life not lived as well, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. It's just, you managed to bring together so many different dimensions in such a small space. Honestly, I take my hat off to you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last writer for this section before we take a short comfort break, and that is Galia Agmoni. Galia is a writer and head of English at a school in London, and it says you can follow her on Twitter, but it doesn't give me her handle. Maybe she'll want to do that. Galia, do you want to say a little bit about and read your poem?
Hello, yes, thank you so much. Before I do, I really, and because we're about to go into a break, I would love also to say thank you so much to Andrew for organising this whole thing, and thank you to David as well for your amazing comments so far. And also thank you so much to everyone who has read, and undoubtedly everyone who's going to read is also going to be just beautiful. It's such a lovely book. If you haven't got it yet, I really recommend it. It's great. That's the sales pitch done. It's quite odd for me to be included in this tree festival because I am typically a city girl through and through, concrete worshipper and quite nature averse generally. But actually yesterday there was a session during the festival where Mama D was talking, and I'm actually going to read what she had on one of her slides because it really summed up exactly what I was hoping to achieve with this poem. So she was saying a tree is a being with history, which is really saying that trees live not only in spaces, but also live across time, just like us. And if we consider the antiquity of trees, we'd have to respect them like elders. And so my poem, which is simply called Tree, is in the voice of what I would consider to be probably quite a sassy city tree. And here it is. I'm bashful under yesterday's plastic bag veil. Captive apples bathe in rainwater and filth. A monolith of ancient aches. Your city brain too fugged to see my smugness underneath. A sundress, more corsets of plastic, no nest. My chest bursting to be hursted, pickled, preserved, worshipped.
Thank you so very much, Galia. I think this is an absolutely wonderful little poem. And again, it's the perfect length for what it needs to be. It just has that perfect, the tree says what it has to say and speaks its own truth in a terrific economical way. But the details that you have the tree invoke place it really well in this urban environment. I love this, the apples bathed in rainwater and filth. That it's unflinching to record exactly the kind of materials in which it interacts as a city tree, and I think that makes the voice really truthful. The voice of the tree is just the way Arthur's was at the beginning, and which had gone from being a rural tree to eventually disappearing. But this is a sassy urban tree, as you say, and she knows what she wants to say, and I think that's terrific. I also really like the stylistic choice to have the slashes, which usually indicate line breaks when you're writing about poetry and prose, but they can also mean either or, and you're using them in more than one way in the poem, which I think really lends each of these phrases more richness and more dimensions because the tree is speaking in tree language, so it's not going to conform to either prose or poetry. It's going to use a way of articulating itself using its own grammar. And I think that's just an absolutely terrific feature. Thank you so very much. That's great. So I think we're moving to a comfort break now, Andrew, is that right?
Yeah, we're doing really well. So what I'm going to ask people to do is make sure you come back at 20 past. No, if we say not 20 past, quarter past, it's 17:08 according to my computer. So if we can get back at 17:15, so you've got time for a quick break and grab a drink. I'm actually going to do something very wicked. I'm going to, just before we invite Dave to read something more and then go on to the other authors, I'm actually going to say something about the competition again. Not a lot, don't panic, because I didn't run the recording, so I need now to record something. Otherwise, we're not going to have quite the right context. So I'll be saying something. You guys can all ignore me, and then we'll go on to Dave. But anyway, off we go. Come back 5:15 with just enough time to make a cup of tea.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for letting me back in.
Okay, that's fine.
For some reason, I seem to have any. Oh, there's better.
Yeah, sometimes your audio comes and goes, Andrew. I think we'll be okay. It's Cara who's going to read your piece. Yeah, is that right? I can't remember now. Bother. Yeah, it is. So we just need.
Yeah, it was the. That's what.
Well, crackling a little at the moment.
I don't know what on earth seems to be wrong with my connection. All of a sudden, it's dreadful.
So Andrew, can you mute yourself now? Great, and now put your mute back on, and put audio back on and try again, just see if there's a change.
Yes, I don't know whether there is much change. It's a bad thing because everybody else doesn't seem to have a problem.
Yeah, no, it's it does break up a bit. Okay, well, fingers crossed. Later, have you got a lot of people using your internet at home?
Nobody here, just me.
You okay? So you haven't got a PlayStation or something going on downstairs? Oh, okay, that's fine. It's when people have got 5 movies on the.
Yeah.
Well done, everyone, for making a cup of tea so quickly.
Yes.
Okay, Andrew, I'm going to. Can you put yourself on mute again? Okay, we'll just wait a couple of minutes. Well, we won't. We'll wait a minute. Okay, I know it sounds completely mad, but I'm going to record the intro again. So don't panic. Okay, welcome everybody. It's the Urban Tree Festival Showcase, where we invite the shortlisted authors from our writing competition to read their work. And just to tell you a little bit about the competition, it was run by Walk, Listen, Create. The theme was chosen by our previous winners, and it was called Secrets of the Trees. And submitters were asked to write a poem or a flash fiction story. It didn't have to be flash fiction, it could be flash memoir or non-fiction in 250 words or under. We had 160 entries, and our 4 volunteer judges were our 2 previous winners, M.L. Grieve and Joanna Walforth, and they were joined by J.C. Niala and Sarah Westcott. And the 4 of them whittled down to a short list of 12, which were then edited by Chris Beswick and beautifully illustrated by Alban Lowe in our Canopy chapbook, which you can purchase from the festival shop, he says boldly. Most importantly for today, we have Dave Borthwick, who's going to MC the evening's event. So thanks, Dave, for coming and agreeing to do that. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. So I'm going to read a poem that was published by Corbel Stone Press in their contemporary poetry series in a pamphlet, an anthology pamphlet called Nature and Regeneration, and it's called In the Dark Half. And in the dark half, adapt to the globe's tilt, the rusted junk of beech leaves and the ashes paring back to those hard dog's claw buds, and the swallows replaced by fieldfares that cluck across stubble on which pink-footed geese overnight, a grey and variegated mass at dawn, then rise. and the paths by tributaries open up again as wind rakes bracken brittle, cracking fibre fatigue, and ticks retreat and lend winter to mapping bleak riparian, with its agri-wrap and baler twine, unloved backwater, high in the dendritic canopy of rivers branching divides, and in the dark half, keep kin there with overwintering neighbours. Deer's track and badger's run, otter slide, and dipper's formal gait. And the hemispheric swing, the celebrated spring, is continued dedication to flux and adaptation, and still stand among blackbird and jackdaw, and the gamble we made on what was coming. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Rena Haralambieva, and she is a Bulgarian writer who writes mostly in English. Her fiction is published in, among others, Reflex Fiction, Litro, Strands, and Bath Flash Fiction. Hello, Rena.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So a little bit about how this story started. A few little bits and pieces came together, I think. Firstly, I had the idea of I wanted to find the right trees so that through each of them, I could tell the story of somebody going through loss, so that each tree could go along a little piece of their way, undergoing the loss of somebody they loved. And then there was this sentence that's, it's strange how some things stick to your mind from years ago. I was part of a therapy group at university, so a decade ago. And my therapist used to always say, everything shifts, everything changes, just these two sentences. And she had this beautiful, calming voice. And this has somehow really stayed in my head. So I knew that the whole story needed to somehow revolve around this. And that's how it came together. And here it is. Trees are poems sung by the wind. Alder, the wood of this tree doesn't rot when underwater. On the contrary, it gets tougher and stronger. I take the path we always took over the wooden planks, making something like a bridge. My legs guide me, knowing the gaps. The same gorgeous silence, only now unshared. Ash. Ash leaves fall when there's still grain. They say that the best you can do is to hold their hand. It's funny how at the end we go back to such a simple thing, holding somebody's hand. I remember walking into the park after the doctor told me, and hugging the ash tree we used to study together, and howling and wanting to tear all its leaves. Aspen. The rippling leaves of this tree give it its name, quaking aspen, as they tremble and flutter in the slightest breeze. Can you feel all this movement? You said. I look at the leaves, an orchestra of sound and movement. I hear you whisper through the branches. Everything shifts, everything changes, and we can't stop that. We can only go with it. Birch, their sound is gentle and soothing and can be heard even in winter when the branches are bare. Trees are poems sung by the sea, by the wind, you once said. I listen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so very much indeed. That was beautifully read as well, Rena. Thank you. Gosh, I really like the way in which this poem has very particular but very cautious movements from one tree to the next. It's a very gentle poem, but you're really successful in conveying that sense of loss. And what I really like about the poem is that the introduction to each of the trees before you move on to the really economical storytelling afterwards is that most of the statements are counterintuitive. That, you know, the wood of the tree doesn't rot underwater. Ash leaves fall when they're still green. These are counterintuitive facts. And then you go into the loss and the bereavement in ways that you may think is counterintuitive. The best you can do is to hold a hand. That the speaker in this particular section wants to tear at the ash leaves, as though kind of making it autumn, as though the trees holding onto these leaves are somehow an insult to the emotion she's feeling. And so the way in which you have this kind of it's not really a contrast, it's kind of I'm searching for the word now, I had it a moment ago. It's, you know, the way in which the section in italics and the paragraph falling sit in relationship to one another is really what makes the poem so powerful and makes it work. So thank you so very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you, Raina.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to Ira Williams, who is an actress and playwright who recently qualified as a Forest School leader. My wife's a Forest School leader, I have to say. And trees and storytelling are two subjects close to her heart. Hello there, Kyra. Do you want to say a little bit about your piece and read it for us?
Yeah, sure. So I don't normally write stories. I normally write plays. I started in 2019. But for one of sometimes between plays, I try an exercise where I just write for 45 minutes with not thinking about it, just that free flow form of writing, and in the hope that it'll generate some sort of idea for a play. And I wrote a longer story called The Forest, and it did have different characters in it, but I realized that the main character that held all these other characters was the forest. And they all had all the different characters had various secrets within this forest, but the forest knew all the secrets. So when I saw the Secrets of Trees theme, I thought, oh, this is perfect, but how do I get this long story into a short form flash fiction? So unlike Penny, I think, who relishes the challenge, I really struggled to get it down to 250 words, because I'm a bit of a waffler. So I did struggle to really try and find the essence of it. But anyway, I'm really thrilled to have been chosen. And this is The Forest. The forest remembers a time when it stretched across the entire land, almost to the sea. Wild bears had once lived there, and back even further into the folded pockets of time, large tongue-flicking lizards, nicknamed dragons by early menfolk. Creatures forgotten by all except the forest. It has a long memory. On this dazzling blue sky day, it is quieter than usual. Only the insects are loud, thrumming with energy. On the outskirts of the forest, a tired king is limping and heaving his bulk away from the hunt. He stops to rest, placing a thickly ringed hand on the bark of an elm, and tries to catch his breath. He is not himself today. His mind is filled with images. A young girl lifting her face to the sky as his men drag away her mother into that deep, shaded part where they would be shielded from view. Had the girl called out to the birds or to God? He can't remember now. Neither had responded, but he couldn't shake the image of her upturned face. Other scenes surface, and he wipes the sweat from his brow as if to erase them. The trees seem to quiver, and for a moment he hears their whisperings. We remember. He takes all his strength to pull his hand from the elm's trunk. He lurches back towards his men and his horses and his house. The forest watches and wonders. Who will be keeper of memories when its trees have all gone?
Thank you so very much, Cara. Thank you. Well, I think you managed to do it. It's, you know, you said it was hard won, but you certainly managed to reach the kind of compression you were looking for. I think what I love about this poem is that it could be any time. This might be in the past, but it just as easily might be in the future, or it might be in a parallel dimension. There's a sense that there's another world being invoked here which touches our own experience of forests. But you know, this kind of mythical dimension that you give to it gives it real force and power, because it also becomes what the best myths do. It's a morally instructive tale as well about the way in which this king regains some kind of moral awakening from the nature round about him, that the longevity of trees mean that, you know, the act has been witnessed and will go on being known about. And that there is no real escape, that the place where these deeds have been committed are tainted with them now. That event will go on and go on and go on. The event is not a singular one; it's a resonating one. And I really think that you did have a fantastic job of invoking all of that in a really short space. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was really lovely to be part of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move on now to Julian Bishop and his poem, or his piece rather, Warning Dangerous Tree. Julian Bishop's first collection of eco-poems called We Saw It All Happen was published earlier this year by Fly on the Wall Press. Hello, Julian.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, everybody. So my poem, I live on the edge of London, and there's, in fact, it's the last road in London, and there's about 2 miles of countryside between where I live and the M25. So all the countryside, all the trees are incredibly precious. And I've kind of got to know a lot of them quite personally, and quite a few of them crop up in this poem. But one in particular is on a walk that kind of links the very built-up area I live in to the countryside. It's a little path, and at the end of the path is an electricity substation. And on the wire surrounding the substation is a big yellow sign saying, "Warning, danger of death." And as if by magic, a few months ago, just before I wrote this poem, on exactly the same wire, a bit further along in the same sign was another, in the same design, another sign saying, "Warning, dangerous tree." So the format was exactly the same as that around the electricity substation. So that got me thinking about, is this dying tree really as much of a threat as climbing into a substation where you can be instantly electrocuted? So, and all the, as I say, the trees in the poem are all characters that I've kind of got to know. "Warning, dangerous tree," says the sign tacked to a barbed wire fence, as if the singular anger of a pollarded old oak could be contained months after it passed on, as if the wrath of a mass plantation shackled by stanchions and slipped into plastic tubes could be excused, as if the rage of the lonely front garden acer could be easily explained, as if you could justify the lopped off limbs of an ash desperate to bridge a tarmac span, or the indignity of topiary inflicted on you, cropped into outsized lollipops and peacocks, as if being labeled scrub or urban furniture weren't enough, or the slavery of being unable to escape the chainsaw, the pain of being stubbed and dehorned, your crown hat-racked and topped, pruned wounds sun-scalded and invaded, plagued by pests and disease, as if a tree didn't already hold enough rain.
Thank you so very much indeed, Julia. I really enjoy your. Well, I enjoy first of all that you live in the last road of in London. That is a great kind of epic quality to it. It's great. Yeah, I love the whole concept of the poem. I really like the language that you use and your use of rhyme. So an internal rhyme as well. As if plastic tubes could be excused. I think your use of rhyming language or half rhyming language, being unable to escape the chainsaw. The rhythm you use and the scansion you use in combination with these rhymes sitting at odd angles to each other is just absolutely terrific. It's a really terrific job. Thank you so very much. But I love the idea of that the trees are not personified in any way at all. They're made creaturely again, and I think that's what they're non-human beings, and I think that's absolutely something terrific. That when you start to think of a tree like that, it changes the whole moral attitude you have towards them. That I once got into terrible trouble by telling one of my children that we didn't need aliens because we had trees, that they could live for hundreds of years, that limbs could fall off, that bits of them could become hollow, that they could self-regenerate, that you could cut them down and they would grow again from the base. Of course, he went to school and said that trees were aliens, so I was summoned, but that's my bad. Anyway, there's a really terrific poem, Julian. Thank you for reading it so well as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to John Bowen. John is a retired social worker from South London. He has written poetry for many years and more recently has had several published. Well done, John. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you to everyone for the fantastic poems and fiction that you just read. Really inspiring stuff. My poem is a bit of a combination of different experiences. I mean, I've been to it's set in Uganda. I've been to Uganda. I've been to Lake Victoria, but on the Kenyan side. But the inspiration for this came from South Africa, where I visited an orphanage several years ago for young kids who, in the main, their parents had died from AIDS. And that is the theme of this poem. It's called Jacaranda, Blue on Blue. Every week she passes from the clinic in Kampala to rest a while in my arms and marvel at the sky through the veil of my bloom, blue on blue. The southern wind speaks through my branches. Stay, little sister. You have many miles before home, before Lake Victoria laps at your feet like a puppy. You carry medicine for mother. Lay it down. I will stay guard. Lay it on my moss-carpeted bowl and sleep while I scatter my trumpets to take home as a gift. I have looked for her for many days now. I know the meaning of her absence. Mother no longer has need of medicine. The girl is spared the 10-hour round journey. She will walk to the shore and throw my blossom into the lake of her ancestors in remembrance of a mother and for a childhood gone, blue on blue. I, Jacaranda, offer shelter to the weary. Many arms wrap round my old gnarled skin, and many tears nourish the sap in my veins. Many stories of fear and loss drop from little lips in the quiet of my shade. Small faces press against my wrinkled bark for comfort only the inanimate can give. I hear and learn much. I take census of the sick and dying, numbered by my pretty flowers, strewn over the dust and rocks, shearing off the breeze or washed up on lake shores, blue on blue. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, John. Thank you. It was beautifully read as well. Thank you. Gosh, I love the voice in this poem. That you you thoroughly, convincingly give the tree a character and a voice which is completely consistent. And I think that's really, it's so hard to do, to give something else a voice and to make it consistent so that it's a believable voice. And you do that so very well. And I love the way that somebody mentioned earlier that if we thought about trees differently, we would think of them like elders. And the tree's almost parental in its tenderness towards this child who's below it. It doesn't just talk, but speaks to the child as well. And I think that's immensely powerful. And the link between the human and the non-human, many arms wrap round my old gnarled skin. I think that's absolutely terrific. And again, the reciprocity that we've heard so much of tonight between trees and people. I think you evoke that so very well. Thank you very much indeed, John. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. And thank you to Andrew, and especially for the festival. Brilliant. Thank you. Do I mute myself now?
You can do, John, yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on now to Andrew Halsall-Smith, who lives outside Durham. He often writes poetry and short fiction whilst walking his dog Bonnie around its leafy suburbs and country paths. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Hi there.
I hope you can help.
You're coming and going a little bit. Do you want to try and tell us a little bit about your piece?
If the audio survives, I'll try. My piece really is inspired essentially by the idea that of permanence and longevity. And you guys have covered this a few times in other ways. That was kind of what I was trying to get across. As you walk around, you understand that these mighty oaks, in this case, hold great secrets over long periods of time. Well, they keep those secrets for you. They are part of the life story of every family that lives in that locality, every passers-by, as well as having their own stories. They're also an audience and a participator in the stories of all of their neighbours, human and otherwise. And this was one of those stories, a private story of the narrator. And you'll hear from the piece, then the oak is there throughout not just the life of the narrator, but the life of others around them.
Thank you, Andrew. You're coming and going a little bit. I'm getting the gist of what you're saying, but not every single word. Do you want to read the piece, or I could read it on your behalf if you wanted to, just because my line's clear and for no other reason. Well, what would you like to do?
Let me jump in where
Yeah,
Cara
please, Andrew.
Williams has offered to read the piece.
Ah, terrific. Thank you.
I think Andrew wanted a female voice to the story. So, When the Bough Holds Strong by Andrew Halsall-Smith. It was early midsummer morning when the boy was first made safe here. Wrapped in the softness of cotton, snuggled in his nest-like Moses basket, lodged amongst the strong limbs of the mightiest oak on Iconbrook Common. Sleeping soundly, the gentlest of breezes rustling leaves into whispered lullabies. The one who left him stood nearby for hours, reluctant to depart until her desperate, selfless act was safely complete. She scored a heart in the bark as a token of eternal love. Her rocked footprints sank deep into lush, dewy grass, tracing anxious, reversing steps across the park lawn. Found, adopted, cherished. As a child, he climbed and swung amongst those parental branches, instinctively, unknowingly, at home here. He courted his love here, composing poetry, adding their initials to that curious heart shape on the trunk. On warm days, they picnicked in its shade. On wet days, its canopy gave shelter. In autumns, they rolled upon a russet carpet. Until, last fall, seeds of a new generation. Yesterday was Midsummer's Eve again. An unseasonal tempest raged, merciless rain hammered, twigs torn into razors, slicing into a melancholy sky. A bolt of light reached down from above. The tree stood firm. Its boughs held strong. Its roots prevailed. The love heart was unscathed. Yet my own heart chose that moment to depart. Henceforth, though I no more stand here watching, I shall be the breeze and sunshine, the fresh buds every spring. My son, some roots grow deeper than you will ever know.
Thank you so very much, Kyra and Andrew. Thank you so very much. Gosh, Andrew, it's an incredibly moving piece, and how you are able to have the mirroring of the adopted father and the tree retaining that sense of parenthood. You know, after the father's passing is absolutely held just beautifully in the way in which you've constructed this narrative, that mix of longer paragraphs and single lines. Each one of those is really terrific, and because it also, you know, when you're talking about where are we? Twigs torn into razors, for example, slicing into a melancholy sky, but then you have this found, adopted, cherished, until last fall, seeds of a new generation. So these are just dropped in there. They're almost like you know, they're almost like acorns from the tree itself that then grows into the next part of the piece, and ending in the rooting as well. Is just really terrific. Just the language and the grammar of the tree being used to explore the relationship as well. I think is all just done really brilliantly, Andrew. Thank you so very much.
You're very kind, and this has been a lovely experience, so I'm really proud of it.
You're on mute, David.
Yeah.
So I am. Thank you. I'm going to move on to Adam Elms now, who's a visually impaired creative living in Bristol, navigating his mid-30s with wild abandon and poetry, loves books, but buys too many. Hello there, Adam.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so back in December, a magnificent ash tree very sadly fell down in Old St Pancras churchyard, and it was a tree that I visited many, many times when I lived in London, and it had been weakened by storms and sadly couldn't be saved. And what's amazing is it was called the Thomas Hardy tree, which many people don't know, that Hardy himself was an architect in the 1850s and 60s in London, and he was tasked with moving an entire graveyard when the Midland Railway was being built in the 1860s. And so he exhumed all the bodies himself, and he took all of the headstones and he moved them to this churchyard in London at Old St Pancras. And he encircled this ash tree with overlapping gravestones. And I think it's just such a potent image of life and death together, really. And Hardy loved nature. You can tell that in his books. Nature, he personifies nature a lot, and nature is another character often in his work. And so I really wanted to pay tribute to him by personifying his tree, and also sort of document the fact that it's very sadly no longer there. And I'd like to thank my friend Natalie, who pushed me to write something on this subject. So here it is. It's a tribute to the Thomas Hardy tree, and it's called Fallen Comrade. The night watchman is toppled. Encircled by death, he now lies himself devoid of breath, a lone stump staring up to his heaven. I realise never again will he hear those bells peal, nor rattle his leaves to the wind's playful fight. His bowers have bent to shelter whispering lovers and rain-drowned wanderers, to peer, to overhear, to keep wise counsel. To nod his approval at knee-bent hopefuls and shield office lunches from their urban hotchpotch, to exhale, to snatch up the gale, to offer solace, an arm hooked round the solitary mourner, claws of gnarl knitted together with clenched grief, rings shot through with echoes, never spoken. Who weeps for you, old guard? And St. Pancras sits, thoughtfully, silently, aching for his comrade, whilst Hardy tuts from the churchyard corner. He knows this is the way of things.
Thank you so very much indeed, Adam. Thank you. Gosh, I think it's really fitting that we're kind of the last of the readers tonight is reading this particular poem, and that you draw together so many of the themes that we've discussed, from the creatureliness of trees to the relationships we can have with them, to their longevity and the way they speak through time, the way they observe change and remind us of it in the present. All of these things are absolutely here. I absolutely, where's the line I was looking for here? Hang on. Your use of rhyme, by the way, throughout the central paragraph or the central stanza is absolutely wonderful as well. It really keeps time for you. It keeps pace for you during that section. I love the rings shot through with echoes, that we know that if we tap wood, it reverberates through the wood. That there might be, that these very rings might be shot through with echoes of events or speech. I think that's terrific as well. And I love the way you end it, because Hardy's cosmic irony and the ways things always turn out badly for his characters is definitely evoked there in the final line as well. It's an absolutely terrific ending to a really evocative poem to this particular tree. Thank you so very much, Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Andrew, and thanks everybody. It's been such a great thing to be a part of, so thank you.
Thank you, Natalie, for encouraging you to submit it.
Okay, well, I think that's everybody. So a big thank you and a round of applause, those silent round of applauses to all the authors for reading and, most importantly, writing and submitting the work. Adam's poem actually was perfect, because what we discovered late on was that the London Wildlife Trust was going to offer a venue for a hub day at the festival, which took place yesterday. And it takes place in a natural park, which they manage. And extraordinary, just by coincidence and fluke, that natural park is within a couple of 100 meters of old St. Pancras churchyard. So we were able to geolocate Adam's poem on the spot of the Hardy tree. And if you check this blog post, you'll, which I'll put a link in, you'll be able to find out a bit more about the audio of which we invited all the authors to read their pieces and where it can be listened to. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding the audio that the authors recorded onto the pieces as they appear on the Walk, Listen, Create website, which will continue and will be visited more often than the Urban Tree Festival site, which tends to not have any visitors much after 6 o'clock tonight. Anyway, more importantly, we're on to the most important part. So we need to sort of kind of drum roll. So I'm not sure how we do that on Zoom, but I'm here just to tell you a little bit about the prizes. So the winners and runners-up will receive silver membership to Walk, Listen, Create, which is worth about €50 and invites you to come along to all sorts of different events that we put on for writers and artists and performers. So that's part of your prize. And you also each win artwork, which we will send you in the next couple of days, which has been created by Alban Lowe. Okay, so what about the winners? What do they get? In addition, they win €200. So it's the first time we've offered a monetary prize. Our winners from last year said that that would increase the number of entries by a significant number. And actually they were right. We had about 30% more entries. So thank you very much for everyone who entered and has made it possible for a couple of people, one poet and one writer of story, to walk away with a big prize. So David, I don't know how you're going to do it. Are you going to do runner-up and winner in poetry and then runner-up and winner in prose? And
Yeah.
If we have a little bit of time left over, we might invite the winners to read their work again. We'll see. Okay, over to Dave.
Okay, no pressure. Okay, so in poetry, the runner-up is Evergreen by M. Gray. Congratulations, M. Gray. And the winner is, I'm so tempted to say I'll tell you after the break, but that's for television. So the poetry, the winner is Warning, Dangerous Tree by Julian Bishop. Congratulations to both. In prose, the runner-up is Trees Are Poems Sung by the Wind by Reina Haralambieva. Well done, Reina. And in prose, the winner is Forever by Penny Walker. So, Andrew, do we have time for the winners of each to read them?
Yeah. Penny, would you like to read your piece yourself, or would you like it to be read again? You need to...
Well, Dave read it so beautifully. If you're happy to, David, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you.
No trouble at all.
So much.
So, Julian, do you want to read yours out first, and then we can read out Penny?
Fine, thank you. Well, gosh, thank you so much. I'm quite shocked. Yeah, I'd love to read it. Thank you. I feel it's so my tree lives again. It has a second life, which is rather beautiful. Thank you. Warning, dangerous tree, says the sign tacked to a barbed wire fence, as if the singular anger of a pollarded old oak could be contained months after it passed on, as if the wrath of a mass plantation shackled by stanchions and slipped into plastic tubes could be excused, as if the rage of the lonely front garden acer could be easily explained, as if you could justify the lopped off limbs of an ash desperate to bridge a tarmac span, or the indignity of topiary inflicted on you, cropped into outsized lollipops and peacocks, as if being labeled scrub or urban furniture weren't enough, or the slavery of being unable to escape the chainsaw, the pain of being stubbed and dehorned, your crown hat-racked and topped, pruned wounds sun-scalded and invaded, plagued by pests and disease, as if a tree didn't already hold enough rain.
Thank you so very much, Julian. I'm never going to be able to look at topiary in my life again without thinking of the indignity of topiary. I think that should be the descriptor for it.
Totally agree.
Okay. Gosh, I've just lost it. Just one moment. Here we go. So this is Penny's piece, Forever. The estate agent insisted. The blockwork garage had to go. Shruti came round to help. I need to bash something with a sledgehammer, Dad, she said. You'll be doing me a favour. Dada built that garage, I know, before he even had a car. I'd steal samosas from the kitchen and squeeze into the space behind the garage to eat them. The silvery trunk of the sycamore grew too close for my chunky brothers to get through. My sisters were afraid of spiders. It was my place, mine and yours. Shruti swung the sledgehammer again and again. Dust and chips of concrete exploded everywhere. The tree is massive now, and its bark isn't smooth and strokeable anymore. It's pitted and crusty and presses up against the garage, bulging over the top like Dada's belly over his belt, like mine now. Shruti struck again. The wall fell. Part of the trunk that had been against the blocks was revealed, naked, flat. Where it had kissed the cold concrete, there was a carved heart, clumsy but beautiful. A for K, forever. I put my hand over it, surprised, reminded of another belly, naked and flat. Did you bring your girlfriends behind the garage, Dad? You old dog, Shruti laughed. It says forever. You should call. You need someone to cook for you. But take her somewhere nicer than this, okay? So here I am, messaging you. Hello, Andrew. My name is Kamal. I think we were at school together. Well done, Penny.
Okay, well, right on 6 o'clock. We've done it. We've gone through the shortlist. We've had some fantastic readings. We got some great winners. So well done to Julian and to Penny. But especially to Dave, who gave us such great constructive comments on the pieces and kept the show on the road and to time. So that's great. I just need to sort of kind of wind up and say that I need to thank the volunteer program director, who is Neil Sinden, who put the festival program together, and to Sarah Hayes, who actually is the only paid person in the whole setup. She was the festival coordinator. We recruited her in March, and she's done a great job to get the festival delivered and get the program all together, etc., etc. So once again, a kind of big thank you to everybody. I'll be contacting all the authors in the next 45 minutes if I get my act together, and I hope you get the chance to read the book, buy the book, listen to the audio, keep writing about trees, and come and join us again at some point. But a big thank you to everyone, and well done.